Another episode of La Verdad podcast, and we're actually doing the live stream again. You know, we had a lot of positive feedback on the live stream, so feel free to comment if you're listening to us live, if you're actually listening to the recording, and you want to go back. I'm sure by the time that this is recorded, it's going to be uploaded via Facebook as well, the video part of it actually, and then we'll have it in audio boom. So Happy New Year, mi gente. It's 2017 finally. So I know a lot of people kind of hated 2016, but before we go into any of that discussion, I kind of wanted to give a huge shout out to two of our friends that came in today. So we're actually going to go ahead and do what I want to call guy talk, you know? The girls did a girl talk episode or whatever, and they kind of did a La Verdad takeover. So I invited two of my closest people in my life. So I have my brother right here on my right hand side with the Cultivo shirt, and I have my other brother from another mother with the Bulls shirt on my left hand side. So I wanted to invite AJ Boricua over here. Anthony, my brother, how you doing?
Doing good, doing good. Hey, what's up, everybody?
And I also have Shadey here, Chad, aka Arab Money, with us today.
What's going on, guys? How you doing?
So 2016, right? 2016 was one of those years where I heard a lot of people complain, right, in social media. And it was one of those things, I don't know, I don't like when people complain about past things, because I think you have to go through it in order to grow. You know, you have to go through learning experiences, right?
Yeah, learning.
But I feel like this year in particular, a lot more people were complaining in social media. I don't know if you guys kind of like...
Yeah, everybody just found social media as an outlet.
For ranting and shit.
For ranting and everything, whether it's Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, things like that. People just were looking for an outlet, and we're looking for... half of those people ranting, we're looking for attention.
Yeah, attention seekers, right? It tends to be, I think we talked about it in another podcast where it's kind of like the new generation. We fit into that generation as well, but a lot more people are seeking attention via social media with all the live stuff and all of the new social media outlets that are out there. It tends to happen, you know, especially since we don't really talk to each other anymore like we used to back in the day. But outside from that, Anthony, what you thought about the whole 2016 and New Year, New Me?
My 2016 went pretty great. So
yeah, any big highlights?
Well, got married. So.
He says that because he's on live right now.
Yeah, I gotta make sure. Oh, she doesn't have social media, so it's okay. No, you know, I was thinking too, like, when 2015 ended, everyone was talking about, like, oh, you know, everyone's complaining about 2015. I feel like it got ramped up 2016, so let's see what 2017 brings as far as the issues that people complain about online, since they feel free to complain about everything.
I don't know if you even saw, like, I posted on Facebook, I don't know if you guys saw a video that they made. It was like a horror movie. Yeah, it was called 2016. Yo, big shout out to whoever created that video, because it was pretty interesting. But I guess what a lot of people noticed from 2016 was a lot of the celebrity deaths that happened. So you had, like, Prince, who was a big icon. You had Princess Leia from her actual name. What's her actual name?
Carrie Fisher.
Yes, who passed away. So those are icons that our parents grew up with, right? So
and George Michaels.
You know, for us, it was kind of like Muhammad Ali. Yeah, exactly. And then, you know, our election this year, that was another big... Everything has been more of like a big change, like a culture shock, and people have gotten a little bit scared behind it. But at the same time, I think that in 2016, we gained a lot, and we were able to learn a lot. Personally, without getting into politics, we learned that we can't really trust a lot of the people out there, and we can't trust... we can't just sit back and say, you know what, I'm just not going to vote. And then this is what happens, right? Aside from that, a lot of different things within the city of Chicago. It's been one of the bloodiest years that we've had. And I say that kind of laughing, because it's kind of like to the point where, what else can you do? You know what I'm saying? It's like, hopefully something else happens.
It's just so unbelievable
to
see these days. Like, what the hell can be done?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and talking about Chicago, you know, 2017 comes around, taxes on everything.
Yeah, that was another big thing that I noticed. I remember I had hit up Shadey over here, and we have a group chat, right? And I was sitting there, I was like, you know what, fuck Chicago, dude. Like, in 2017, we're going to get taxes increased, right? We're getting
property taxes increased.
taxes on sugary drinks.
Yeah.
There's no longer bags. They're not going to be supplying bags anymore. They're going to be actually a charge, 7-cent charge per bag, no matter if you're a big business or a small business. So for those of you that are not from the Chicagoland area, a little background behind that is that they started the plastic bag ban in Chicago. I want to say last year, 2016, right? Yesterday. A couple months ago. So they started out where it was, if you were a small store like a bodega or like a little corner store, you could still have plastic bags. If you were a bigger store, you had to have like a thicker grade that was biodegradable plastic or paper, right? And you had to supply that. Now they're saying, you know what, you could use regular bags or whatever, but we're not going to get, everyone's going to get taxed per bag that they use. So it's 7 cents
per bag.
It could make a big difference, you know.
Just whatever the sugary drink is, what is it, 1 penny per ounce?
Mm-hmm.
So something that was $3.99, 120 ounces is 5 something now.
And you know, it might not be a big deal for a lot of us. We might not see a huge change, but there's people out there that, you know, I personally know, and I've personally been in the situation in the past where every penny counts, right? Yeah. Where that little increase is going to decide whether or not I could get an extra loaf of bread, you know, for my house or not. So those are some of the things that happened in 2016 and some of the things that are going to happen in 2017 now. But before we continue with any discussions, I brought you guys here to talk some guy talk, right? So, like I mentioned in another podcast, I look at these two for any sports advice. You know, not my bookie, but any type of advice, whether or not I'm trying to make a bet or I'm trying to, you know, just watch a game and understand more about the rules and regulations, I hit up these two. So, I know that we've kind of have a couple things that we want to discuss today. And before we go into the meat of the discussion, which is the NFL and Super Bowl that's coming up, etc. Let's talk a little bit of sports that's been happening in the last couple of days. So, Shadey, what happened a couple of days ago? Yesterday, was it? No.
It was like it was either yesterday or 2 days ago. It was UFC 207, I believe.
Yeah, Friday night.
And Ronda Rousey just was coming back after her first devastating loss against Holly Holmes. She came back and got her butt whooped against, I think her name was like Amanda Nunes. Yep. I think that the Amanda Nunes whooping was worse than the Holly Holmes whooping.
Yeah, because it just came out.
She got them hands.
So, for our listeners who might not be so familiar with Ronda, I'm sure you probably are with social media and all that. It's everywhere. She for a lot of guys was like this a hottie, you know. I remember for a while, mostly because it was like
ass kicking hot.
Yeah, exactly. yeah. And she was on the ESPN.
She was like the first like UFC. She
grew her brand like
She is like the face of UFC women fighters. Like she was the first like to succeed, headliner, everything like that. She made that brand for UFC, the women's division. And then like for a good period of time, she was just unbeatable.
She was 12-0.
Yeah, she was just unbeatable. And then her stardom exploded. She started getting movie deals, all that stuff. And then just one fight just changed her career.
I kind of
broken jaw.
I felt bad for her, but at the same time, it's part of the game. You know what I'm saying? It's like you need to know that they're not robots. They're always somebody's gonna get hit. Right. Somebody's gonna fall. But I think what I got the most annoyed was this second fight around. It's like, you know, I'm not a big boxing fan, and I'm not a big
what training they did with
exactly.
her.
That's what I was gonna say was that the training.
Her strength is you know, judo. It's you know, being able to submit, you know, put someone in submission, and her trainer had her come out start striking, which is, you know, basically punching, and that's not her strength at all. I've heard from a lot of guys that I know that watch boxing all the time, and they complain like her shadow boxing is terrible.
It's terrible.
It is terrible.
That's the number one weakness that she has.
It's exactly. And then you're coming out against someone that strikes like crazy.
Right.
And that's why it only lasted 48 seconds.
The two people that she lost to.
Yeah.
Hell of boxing.
Holly Holmes was a boxer.
She the boxing background, and then Amanda Nunes with the boxing background.
Yep.
At the end of the day, my opinion, I like boxing more than I like the UFC.
Yeah.
But but UFC, I love it still.
Yeah.
But like, if you can't box, like all the other stuff, you know, like
you gotta have something of everything in there.
Yeah.
To even have a chance anymore.
And I think the biggest issue that a lot of fans had was that it was like, okay, you lost, right? She got hit hard. That first fight, I remember a lot of people were just like, you know, hitting her hard, and social media was just destroying her. And then I guess, you know, it's been what, a year that before she went into another
It was
fight.
like a year and a half, yeah.
So a lot of people were like, okay, let's see what she does now. And then she failed again. And it's like, I feel bad for her because she has built up her brand so high. But you can only do certain things as an athlete. You can only let your people down so many times before they say, for example, we used to have one right here, Derrick Rose, right?
Right.
He was, everyone in Chicago loved him, right? When he first started out.
Some still do.
Some still do. The hardcore guys that stick to their guys, they still do. But it's one of those things, you know, as a athlete, you know, you let your people down once. Okay, you know, he's gonna come back. He proves himself, blah blah. Twice, 3 times, 4 times. Like, you know what? We hate him. Get rid of him.
Yeah.
So I think they have that in the back of their mind, and instead of
you
using that,
you went into basketball. That's my sport right there. No, with like D Rose, man. When he came out, he was all about laying his heart out for the game, for the team, for the game. You know, for Chicago, and that's what we all loved about it. That's what Chicago fans love about their athletes is when they go out there and give it their all, don't care, put their livelihood on the line. And when they started coming around that, oh, he is healthy, doctors cleared him to come back and everything,
and then
he
doesn't
didn't
want to come back and play.
And he doesn't. And it was the same year that you had Adrian Peterson coming back from Minnesota after, what, only 7 or 8 months?
See, that's what triggered it.
Yeah, that triggered the anger because you see him dominate. And then you see D Rose, who was this dominating force on the court for Chicago. And he's taking his time. The Bulls seem to have had a chance that moment, but he was the healthiest person, yet they didn't want to play. Next season comes in, okay, we give him a chance. 10 games into the season, again, tears another part of another knee. And
I remember for a while, everybody was like, he needs to change those shoes, man.
Right.
Yeah. And then not only that, but then the comments that he would make.
Really stupid stuff.
See, now the injuries, so the thing with Chicago fans, they're all diehard fans. It doesn't matter if you're a Bulls, Sox, Cubs, it doesn't matter. You're always a diehard fan. You're always going to root for the guy regardless of injury or not. Derrick Rose, the minute he started opening up his mouth with those
more
obnoxious comments,
about the money
that's when the people's opinions started to change of him. That's when the wheels started spinning and people's heads like, does this guy care?
Yeah.
So that's
what does he really care about now?
Right. So when he was talking about how like, oh, I want to make it, I want to see my kid walk graduation. Your kid's 3 years old at the time.
Yeah.
What the hell are you worried about? High school and college graduation.
Like any athlete has said, you're gonna be limping at the end of your career.
He's talking like he's like he's out like he has some loose screws.
Yeah. And that's the biggest problem is that at the end of the day, you're a brand, right? And I see that. Yeah, you're an athlete, whatever, but you made it to such a big arena now, such a big mainstream media, that you need to start thinking about how am I going to be a brand? How am I going to make myself more money without sounding very foolish? You know, because that's your career. If you do it wrong, if you say something really stupid like he did, or there's been multiple people like Aaron Hernandez, there's people like that, you know, that have done stupid shit, there goes your whole career. Yeah. You know, and they don't really think that the brand is essential for
brand. So like when you look at MJ has.
I was just gonna say that.
MJ took his brand and lit it up on fire.
Well,
like
Nike,
he just
Nike
exploded.
was nothing.
And then Nike was nothing before MJ. And then you look at Tiger Woods, who after his sex scandal, his brand went down the gutter.
Yeah.
People, you know what I'm saying? So like. It's tough being an athlete. It's a double-edged sword.
It is.
You make all this money, you get all this fame, you get all this notoriety, and the minute you screw up is the minute it could all go away.
Maybe one of the biggest success, even though I hate the Yankees, but Derek Jeter.
Yeah.
Never heard anything bad about them.
Never.
But then again, let's
had a
be
great career and everything.
So since we're talking about like branding and certain situations, but like Derek Jeter, you know, very great career, but then you have like an athlete, who could I think of that's done really crazy shit outside of the scene?
Dennis Rodman.
Rodman, yeah, you know what I'm saying? But he'll always be remembered.
He's the first person that comes to mind when it comes to crazy.
So then again, it's like, who do
Chicago,
who has the best value out of them? You know, sometimes at the end of the day, the crazy ones make more money. You know, because they're the media wants them. You know, it's what's hot.
Oh,
right
like
now.
Brandon Marshall.
Brandon Marshall, yeah.
You know?
But that turned out to be like a health issue.
Yeah, it was a health issue with him,
when
but
in the beginning of his
he's been
career.
able to use that
to
make his brand bigger.
Exactly.
And
bring
create
awareness to what is it that he has
He has a mental health disorder.
Right.
I want to say it's
like I don't want to say depression.
It's kind of like it, but it's not necessarily.
Oh man, I had a tip on my tongue.
It's not
like
PTSD,
a split
is it?
personality or something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
So with situations like that, then leverage the bad things that you've done and make yourself money behind it. But I think back to Ronda's discussion, she had a brand. She still has a brand, to be quite honest with you. But I think that eventually it's going to start declining a little bit more now.
After the fight, they talked about how possibly retirement, just because you had two big.
She's what, 30 years old?
Yeah, 30 years old. Now, the thing with Ronda is Ronda has a huge career. Even before she stepped into the UFC, she was a gold medalist in judo.
Yeah.
She has like a long list. She was an Olympic bronze medalist. I got notes over here with it. She was a Pan American gold medalist.
Yeah.
And then she was like the first. She was the first female martial artist to make $1 million.
Yeah.
So Ronda, once again, is sort of everybody always says the Michael Jordan of something when they're great. She's the Michael Jordan of the women of UFC.
Yeah.
But
at least she took it to a place that it can be noticed now. Yeah. And you never know, maybe the next one that comes out is the next great one that comes out.
In my opinion, I think it's time that the ship has sailed, because Dana White, who's the president of the UFC, I don't know if you've noticed with the advertisements or anything like that, or their promos, he's force feeding it down other people's throats to watch the UFC with her. I think it's time that you flip the page and start a new chapter in the women's division.
And it's very common when it comes down to, especially to sports like that. For a very long time, there's been articles written out there about WWE. McMahon being very, very, force feeding certain people to the media. So I feel like in every single sports, they tend to do that in order to gain more momentum behind it, more viewers. Yeah. But unfortunately, it's that person that suffers because of stuff like that. They build them to be so godly and so strong, and then they fail.
They had a block in the road. Is the minute that their career starts to fall, and then when Dana White decides, or when that president of that sports decides that, all right, we're going to go a different page, we're going to go another route. As if it's sort of kind of what have you done for me lately type thing.
Unfortunately, it's how it
we saw
everywhere.
I guess that's why
doesn't
boxing
matter in
has
sports.
suffered. Boxing has suffered in that sense.
A lot. Boxing has.
You don't. Back in the day, you had like all these guys that all these heavyweights and all these welterweights and all these champions that were out there all the time. They were promoting them all the time. But nowadays, it's just one big name, two big names, and that's it. And if they don't fight each other, there isn't no mega fight that they call.
I think boxing also lost a lot of its followers because of the cheating scandals behind it.
Yeah.
A lot of scams and a lot of fights. So it was to the point where I remember growing up. We had people like Tito Trinidad. Where people will make T-shirts, you will get all together to watch the fight. Yeah. It was your pride and joy. I remember they also had Prince Nassim.
That's my man right
Another
there.
guy who knew how to sell his brand. He knew how to sell his brand.
I think that's the thing with boxing, is it's lost its swagger. And then the people that try to bring that swagger back, they're not good fighters.
No.
So you got I think the most recent. Now, I'm not a fan of him, but I do respect what he does inside the ring, and for what he's done with the sport of boxing, because he's put it back in the spotlight. Floyd Money Mayweather.
Yeah. Which is another big
one, really.
Right.
I mean, you had back in the day, boxers like Muhammad Ali who knew how to sell a fight. You know what I'm saying? You had
he was the best salesman I've
dude,
ever.
like, you know. You had who else? It was a good person. Well, you know, we talked about money. Maybe
You got Oscar De La Hoya who brought like the
Olympian side of it as well, and then also it. Also,
Sugar Ray Leonard, you got.
Well, you had a controversial
you know, Mano de Piedra, you had all these guys.
Don King, who knew how to promote his boxers. Yeah, you had all these issues with him and everything, but every fight that Don King brought around, everyone was watching those.
Right.
You know?
And I think at the end of the day, you know, it's just certain rules, certain things have changed in different sports. In different sports, yeah. So also when it comes down to like football, I know a lot of people have stopped watching football because of all the different rules and regulations. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later on. Exactly. I mean, basketball's the same way. I had posted a video on Facebook. I think you guys probably saw it, where it was like the number of travels. You know, people were traveling. It was like 10 steps. And they wouldn't even call it travel.
I think travel. Well, if you're gonna take it to basketball with traveling, that's always been an issue. I always remember watching the '90s. The big men were always traveling. Yeah. Shaq, Patrick Ewing. You know.
But I feel like
my god.
But I feel like they will call it more consistently. It was
a little more consistent. But then again, back in those days, you allowed so much contact that. You know, of course you would travel a little because everyone was pushing and shoveling everything.
And then correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like the whole era of basketball now, it has turned more into like this whole fast break
it's
kind of game.
Jump shooting.
So of course, there's going to be a lot more traveling. You know, they're not doing as much passing as they used to, or.
What you gotta say, what I would say is the athletes these days, they're a lot more athletic than they were back in the 90s. You know, in the 90s you had your powerful, strong guys like Karl Malone and everything. Yeah. But he wasn't jumping 12, 13 feet above the rim to dunk anything. Yeah. You know, he had his game, but he had his hustle and muscle type of guys back in the day.
It's just the era of basketball has changed. Before, like in the 90s, the basketball that we grew up watching when we were kids, that was exactly what you were talking about, the hustle and muscle. It was a strong man's game. Yep. It was, if you have the balls to do this, you would do it. Mm-hmm. And then on top of that, they would shit talk, and they would shit talk a lot. I don't know if you've seen like YouTube, any like MJ video of him
he would destroy you mentally before he
exactly. He would tell you, I'm going to hit this free throw with my eyes closed, and then hit the free throw. Yep. So like, there's none of that in the NBA, and if there is that going on in the NBA today, you're automatically given a flagrant. You know, you're technical.
You got guys crying about like he's calling me a bitch.
It made the sport what it was, and it made the passion of the rivalries. Like it just made it made it.
If you look at highlights from the 80s, from the 90s and stuff, you had Larry Bird, one of the biggest names in sports, fighting against Julius Erving, Dr. J. You know, another big name in the sport of basketball.
If that was
do you think that Kevin Durant and LeBron James are going to get into a fight?
Not even just that. If that was to happen nowadays, it would be more of like a racial kind of thing too, because you had a white guy and a black guy fighting. And unfortunately, it has become that way. And even though our country thrives and loves sports, and loves the passion of being able to represent a certain location that you're from, it also has died down throughout the years, especially when it comes down to the whole, shit talking, the trash talking is not there anymore. The pride that goes behind it is not there anymore.
If you talk trash now, you're looked at as a bully.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah. You're a bully. Instead of just being an ultimate competitor out there, trying to weaken your opponent mentally before you can physically go out there and weaken them.
And then the way these athletes act on the court now, it trickles down to the kids. Yeah. Because you look at it, like I went to a while ago, I went to a game, it was like a high school game, and you got these guys bitching and complaining about calls, and it's like, yo, play the game. Yeah. Like, I don't remember ever seeing this when, I was playing at the time, but it's trickling down.
So so you know how they say, oh, what you watch on TV is going to impact the way you act as a kid. I don't know. I used to play basketball, and then I coached basketball as an adult, okay? So when I played basketball, I wanted to hustle and use my muscle and act like Rodman and everything, but I wasn't... And none of the guys that I played against would act stupid or do anything violent or anything. We just played physical, strong basketball and played smart about it. Nowadays, they're like, oh, no, if you see someone attack, you got, that's how they're going to act.
Someone says hi.
Hey.
Instagram.
Hello.
Hello, how's everybody?
Vic Store. Vic Store, I don't know. Says
Big
hi.
shout out. I thought Vanessa was, Vfig was sleeping over there in the corner for a second. How are we doing on time?
I can't see time.
On the top right here on the Facebook one, what's the, there's no time on there?
No, there's no time.
Alright,
No.
we'll figure it out. But on that note, I remember when I used to play basketball as well. I mean, I used to watch. I was never really the type that was into the mechanics of the sports or into the rules and regulations. I would just watch the game.
He played from 3-point line to 3-point line.
Yeah.
That was his play. He was the biggest kid on the court, but he only played at 3-point line. But, defend, have your hands down, and then give me the ball and shoot a three. That was his.
But I remember before the games, like I would take on this persona of being like an NBA athlete, like to the point where like I had my own little rituals, and then I would think, I was like, damn, what would Jordan do in this situation, or what would Rodman? Mostly Rodman. I think I was just more into Rodman because I was a forward as well when I played. Yeah, and then my grandma was a real big fan of Rodman, so like I always wanted to be like that type, you know. So I remember I'll be like, damn, what would Rodman do? Oh, damn, he kicked the photographer. Maybe I should kick the photographer too.
Which is mommy. You don't want to kick mom.
So in that sense, though, when I would go out into the court, I would give it my all because I wanted to feel like I was in the NBA. Yeah. So I don't know if the mentality has changed.
Okay, so that part of the mentality issue, you know, how it's trickled down and everything. So I coached. I didn't coach last year. I was coaching my stepson from I think 3rd grade through 8th grade, and most of the same boys always joined the same team. They wanted to be with me. They wanted me to coach them and everything. They felt comfortable with me coaching them. And so my type of basketball, the way I would coach it is you're a disciplined athlete, but you play strong and you don't give up on anything. So we would have issues a lot of the times. These kids were some of the best kids that I've known. The parents, some of the best parents I've known. Just very nice, very disciplined people, but on the court they gave it their all. And so when a kid would go in hard to the basket and just complain, you know, fall down, hit the ground hard, and be like,
start flopping.
No, he wouldn't. They wouldn't. Not my team. But the referees would see that and tell them to calm down.
Yeah.
They would tell my players to relax and calm down, that they were taking it too serious. Well, if you're an athlete, don't you want to give it your all?
Yeah.
And so the referees, they teed up one of the kids because he complained about hitting the ground hard, and that was it.
It's it's the same reason why everybody gets participation trophies now.
Yeah, exactly.
That is the dumbest thing ever. I hate participation trophies.
I think personally, because of the fact that I was in sports, because of the fact that I was competitive in that sense. Now, don't get me wrong, our parents weren't the type that, because we lost, we were a piece of shit. No, never, ever. But I think the competitiveness that was taught to us has helped me in my career, has helped me in my ambitions to do, for example, even this podcast. So the whole participation trophy, I always see it. I'm like, damn, really? Why? You know, there should be someone should be honored for winning the championship, and then you learn because you want to strive to be great.
All that participation trophy stuff that we're talking about right now, that goes back to what we were first talking about with everybody going on Facebook bitching and complaining about, seeking attention. Those are the people that got those participation trophies.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not an equal? Well, no, you lost. That's
what it is.
So, I think the great thing about when I was coaching that a lot of parents shared in the same mentality that I had, where, so we would join these leagues as well as a team they wouldn't really have you win trophies or anything at first. So, but they would only say, it's all about having fun. So my thing is, it's all about having fun, but do you have fun when you lose?
Yeah.
Right.
How the hell can it be anything fun if you lose? If you're competitive, if you compete up to the last minute, if you lose at the buzzer, you'll be pissed, but you feel good that you competed all the way through. Yeah. Some of these kids, some of these parents at the beginning when I first started coaching, they were like, I guess they thought their little Timmy was gonna be Michael Jordan or something, and he couldn't even play, and so they're complaining about me not coaching him to know how to play. There's only certain things you can do.
Yeah.
But as long as he's out there trying his best and everything, then that's what we encourage. But he's not the best, so you don't just tell him, "Oh, you're the best thing ever." No,
You know, aside also
you
from
just tell him keep trying.
Aside also from that, another big one that's very hard to deal with and hard to work with is the people that are sore losers. You know, so I know we have that a lot. I've seen that a lot, especially in teams where they lose and forget about it. They just shut down. Oh, like they don't know how to function. I remember watching this game. It was like a pee-wee basketball game, and this kid was like the best kid in the team. Right, he was the tallest kid, and everybody was always throwing the ball at him. Then he missed like 2 free throws. The dude like threw himself down on the floor, completely like shut down. It's like, dude, you're good, but at the same time now you're being a sore loser. Now you don't know how to act. Like, keep it moving. Go on. There's gonna be another game. Learn from the experience. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And then that's also, you know, as a coach, when I see it in the coach perspective, you gotta coach them up not to be acting that way too.
Mm-hmm.
But as a parent, you gotta be able to back up that your coach is trying to do the best for those kids as well.
Yeah.
And so, I remember there was, like I said, the last few years of me coaching my stepson and his team, his teammates and everything, the parents and the kids that I dealt with were freaking awesome. They were amazing ones. And the first year or two that I was coaching, the parents that were on there and everything, they were complaining about everything that I did. But,
is it just me, or do you see you being a coach? Like, I coached a little bit. I coached for a year at high school football, but you coached a lot longer. Do you see less kids doing more organized sports nowadays than you probably did growing up, or, you know?
That, or they don't try. They're forced to do it. Forced to do some activity. Like, the parents just sign them up to do something, but they rather be sitting on the bench playing on their phone.
I think also
there's some kids like that. Because
there's
other kids that just want to go hard at it. Let's go. Let me learn. Let me see. You know.
Because I see a lot of kids that nowadays would rather play Madden than play football.
Yeah.
That would rather play these World of Warcraft video games than go outside and shoot a hoop or join an organized sport, whether it's in their town or high school or anything like that. I see that a little bit more than.
I think I've noticed too, like a lot of times, because of the situations that we're at now, you know, it comes down to how it is outside. For example, they're scared to send their kids. But let's say they live in a good neighborhood. I also feel is the lack of people wanting to socialize, right? It comes down to the parents. A lot of times, that same parent is probably a very socially awkward person that doesn't want to take their kids to play organized sports because they're gonna have to sit there and talk to fulana and tal about, you know, the
I'm socially awkward, but when it comes to sports, it's like. Yeah. That's the realm that I feel comfortable in.
I think also, you know, the fact that you played sports when you were a kid, right?
Yeah.
And then we played sports when we were a kid. I want to keep that tradition going with my kid.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just I strongly believe that it has molded me into who I am nowadays. To understand, even just understanding a play, right? Like go from A, B, and C has allowed me to understand how to do workflows, how to do strategy exactly nowadays.
A lot of people say that doing sports as a kid builds character. Mm-hmm. I don't think that. I think what it does is it actually reveals the character.
Okay, yeah.
Because everybody has something instilled in them, and what it does, what sports actually does, is it builds upon what it is, or it teaches them a newer experience, so they know later on in life that, hey, I can't just give up this easily,
or an outlet to something. So I remember one thing, you know, from when I played my 7th and 8th grade teams. My head coach at the time, Coach D at Monroe. Shout out. Over the summer, he told me, he's like, you know what? I see a lot of anger in you. Try and use that anger.
What a damn angry kid, man.
Try and use that anger to fulfill positive, turn it into something positive. Turn into something positive on the court. So if you're angry, hustle more. Yep. Fight for that rebound. Fight for this. Fight for that. And it just opened up my eyes to, oh, you know, that's something I can do so easily. Yeah, I was only 5'7" against guys that are 6'1", 6'2". Well, I was grabbing rebounds over them because I fought harder than they did. That's what it opened up my eyes into. And that's the same type of thing that happened with my stepson as well. Yeah. So at first, when we first signed him up in football, he was scared. He was scared to get hit. He was scared to hit. He didn't know exactly what strengths he had.
Yeah.
Okay? He didn't know exactly the strengths.
And how to use it, you know.
The strategy, he didn't know much of it. Until my wife, his mom, who was all 5'0", Carla, grabbed him one day. He had his full gear on, and she's like, "Tackle me! Come on! Show me what you got!" And, you know, it finally, you know, woke him up.
Yeah. You know what?
He went from being a bench player to a starter, you know, playing linebacker, playing running back. He loved getting hit, and he loved hitting now.
You said scared, because a lot of kids and a lot of parents are, at least from what I hear and see on the news, they are scared because of how big the NFL has put an emphasis into concussions.
Yeah.
And how we talked about what the NFL players do that trickles down to the kids. Yeah. So a lot of people are afraid of that because of the concussions that it could cause, or potential concussions, that the brain injuries.
Yeah, exactly.
Now we could go into this discussion a little bit because it's something that I wanted to talk about, and it's that whole concussion in youth, and especially in youth football. And I know, so maybe you guys might disagree or agree or not on whether or not they should get rid of it, or maybe look at different alternatives to help the concussion. I personally like the game of football. I do feel that there is certain things that happen with kids, especially with kids, that are not monitored and could potentially be very, very harmful for them. So the reason I wanted to talk about this was because you coached youth football, right? And then you actually are a parent of a youth football kid. Yeah. So I was watching this documentary, and they're talking about, you know, the fact that kids, especially under, I want to say, high school or even under college, are not regulated as much as far as practices, etc. Right? So when you get into college level, or I think even the NFL, you can only have full contact practice like certain times during the week. In high school or even middle school, these guys are having it early morning and evening full contact every single day, without the resources of a doctor on staff, right? Without the resources of someone checking to see if their pupils are dilated, if they've been hit with a concussion. And some of these kids have passed away. So what do you think needs to happen? My first question is, what do you think needs to happen? And do you think it's going to take a big toll on youth football in a couple of years?
I think that football in general, in a couple of years, maybe about 5-10 years max, will slowly start to see a decline.
Really?
The reason why...
That soon?
But not major, just a little bit here or there. The reason why is the fear. And now, the NFL, who, by the way, is a $10 billion company, they put these commercials up. They advertise concussion a lot. And when you have these players that are trying to do these hits, where like it's helmet to helmet, things like that, the kids, when they go and play, they want to replicate the same thing. I want to hit somebody like Ed Reed hit.
They want to hear
that. They're not teaching them. Yeah, they want to hear that clap.
Yeah.
The way to help make youth football a lot safer is teaching the proper form of tackling.
Yeah.
Okay?
And I think, I mean, witnessing it through my stepson, you know, I seen all these coaches who had to get different certifications, you know, every single year, throughout the year, you know, and...
Which I think is good.
That's one thing that
athletic,
a lot of athletic organizations are doing, where these coaches do need to have certificates and be trained to do this.
And that's good to me.
Be trained to do first aid and CPR, to do all of this stuff.
And to identify it, and as soon as they identify it, you know, it happened to my stepson over the summer when he was going through his training camp, where he hit, I can't remember if he hit one of the machines or something, slipped and hit it with his head.
Yeah.
Okay? And they saw that it kind of left him woozy. He was trying to fight to get back in and continue with practice and everything. The coaches did not play around. They told him, they took his helmet away. They told him, nope, you got to bring a doctor's note. So I remember a couple days later, I had to go to the doctor's office, and they took it really serious too. We saw 3 doctors at that same day.
Wow.
All 3 of them then cleared him,
Wow.
and then wrote the note that he could return to practice and everything.
See the difference? 10 years, mate. Because 10 years ago,
You were
Oh,
just
well.
10 years ago, I had a concussion during a game. I had a concussion during a game.
You ain't getting no water. Get back in.
Get back in. And but the thing is I wanted to get back in.
Yeah.
There was no concussion protocol when I was going through through high school.
Some of these kids are so
Now
competitive,
it's different.
They want to get back
Yeah.
in. It's,
I was
it's
one
the
of those
good
hard-headed
spot.
guys that want. I went in with broken hands. I just told the doc to tape it up and let me get back in there. I went
The
in. That's the
adrenaline,
way I am.
Yeah.
The adrenaline. That's that you don't feel the pain until after the game or the next day.
Yeah. Yeah.
But-
no, and I seen that. Like, so witnessing it as a parent, and sometimes I would volunteer and do work with the leagues and everything. No, you see some of the coaches now, they take it serious. They don't play around with that because they know their certification could get taken away if they don't act.
Not just that,
responsibly.
man. One of those kids could die.
Yeah,
one of
under
those
their
kids could
watch,
die, yeah.
and it's a bigger thing. I
These
mean,
these retired NFL players are coming out of the woodwork,
Mhm.
either committing suicide or
Yes,
having
yes.
or doing this stuff
Yeah.
because
Being
of
CTE and
yeah
all that.
CTE.
Yeah.
That's something that I don't know if you haven't, I recommend you do watch it. The Will Smith movie called Concussions.
That's what I was just gonna say.
That basically started this whole topic and
Yeah.
discussion that we're going on with, and what it's been being brought up the last
It
4
was
or
a
5
very,
years.
very good production, very good movie. But it also brought up the curiosity in me to understand and to research a little bit more on whether or not it's something it's a sport that I want to see my nephew in, stuff like that. But I think just like you mentioned it, and you mentioned it as well, is it's something that we all need to take serious, especially as parents. I've seen parents that go out there and just belittle their own kid because didn't mamiti go back in there play like
those
come on man,
dads
like,
living the dream through their
exactly,
yeah.
dude. It's
Yeah.
like, you know what, you just want to punch one of those guys and be like,
and
yo,
they
sit down.
they
like-
try and fight with other parents and
Yeah.
stuff. See,
They're the
like
coach.
when
They're the
coach,
coach, the ref,
I
the
coach,
player.
I coach them tough, but I don't demean any of the
No,
kids.
dude,
I don't demean
what's the
anyone.
point of that,
No, that just works against you.
Yep.
But as we were talking about concussion and everything, I was just thinking, you and I have daughters, and actually one of the highest rate of concussions is soccer, girls soccer.
Yeah. I didn't know that, but and that's a
Probably when they're
sport.
going for the header or
The
something
headers,
like that.
and so obviously the physical nature of in football, you still got your gear on, you still got a helmet, so some of it can take the impact away.
Some of these kids, like,
But girls soccer, you don't have the muscular neck.
yeah.
You don't have the shoulders. You don't have that, and so when they go in for the headers,
And even they collide
they
with each
collide
other.
with each
That's-
other.
yeah, that
They
could be
fall on
pretty
the
bad.
ground. They get
Yeah.
kicked.
So I'm
So
not gonna put
that's-
it. So should we put them in soccer? No, I mean I think softball
Well,
and baseball is a better sport to me. But
I don't like soccer at all, so that's all I don't
other
care.
fans are soccer fans.
But if my daughter wants to try it, why not? It's a sport. You're active. You commend these players because they run
These kids
around
have so much
all
energy,
day.
man. So
Yeah.
go use up the
These
energy.
soccer players, they have so
Football,
much
football
energy,
runs
so.
through my family. I know for sure if I get a son, for sure. I'm gonna introduce him to football if he likes it. Then I still have baseball and basketball in my back
He'll be
pocket.
like,
And I
hey,
hope to
Shady.
God he'll accept one of
He'll be like,
those.
he'll be like, Daddy Shady, I want to go with Christian and learn music instead.
So also one
You
of
better be the next DJ Khaled. You know, music, bro.
he already has the
I
beard.
just thought about it. That could be a great Halloween costume for you.
For me,
I'm sure he tried it
working
before.
on this beard like tomorrow.
So another reason why I brought up the whole concussion situation is because it also plays a big role in the mental health of the athlete, right?
Yeah.
So watching that movie, the concussion movie, they started showing how these athletes were showing signs of like PTSD, right? Because of the stuff that there goes my cat. Because of the stuff that was happening when they were playing. So it makes you wonder too on the aggression and what some of these people do outside of the arena or outside of the ring or outside of the venue that they play in. So for example, I wanted to talk about Aaron Hernandez, right, who I think allegedly murdered, I'll say allegedly because we're recording, and murdered someone or whatnot, and I think he just went into trial and he mentioned something about doing, I don't know the exact same story.
Wasn't there something that came out that they want to use his tattoos as admissible guilt or something like that?
I have
Because
no
he just recently, or previously or whatever. I haven't read up on him.
Got some
It's
jailhouse
just,
tattoos, right?
You know, I was a fan of him
Gangbang
and the
tattoos.
Patriots when they played, but then hearing all the crap about him, I don't even pay attention to his story anymore. But yeah, that he has the same guns that were used in a murder or a double murder or something like that, and so they're trying to use that he possibly was.
And then I think the guy that he murdered was one of his friends. I'm not 100%.
That's one of the
one
trials.
of his childhood friends or something.
That's one of the trials. Then there's another one from
That just
a year
started,
before
Of
that
something that
a
happened.
double murder, something like that.
So that leads me to the discussion, and we're getting closer to the hour here, so we won't be able to go too much into detail. But I feel that also, whether or not it was from concussion or whatnot, that mental health of these athletes, you know, for him to do something like that, it's a big deal.
Because he was getting paid handsomely.
The dude was awesome.
He just got a nice contract.
I remember because I started becoming a fan. I was like,
oh,
this
called
guy.
him or something.
Yeah. I think eventually
the main streets of Connecticut.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't.
Well, I think he's from Florida, right?
I don't even know. I think he was from Connecticut.
Well,
he went to
He
Florida.
went to college at Florida,
Yeah.
University of Florida.
He knew T-Boy and all them, right?
Yeah, they were on the same squad.
So I think at the end of the day, and the reason I brought it up is that these concussions are probably making some of these players cuckoo in the head. For you to go out there and try to be the next Cocuyuela or the next freaking...
He's trying to be the next Pablo Escobar of the NFL.
Come on, dude. Like, you're making enough money as Pablo. Like, not as much as Pablo.
Well, remember... Oh, man. Who was
Danny
that Bears
says
player?
What up?
A few years ago. That basically they ended up finding that he was running almost a cartel.
Oh, I know exactly what you're talking about.
So that's what I'm saying. It's like...
He was running like a sex
stupid-
ring or something like that.
Like,
Running
how
drugs and
stupid could
everything.
you be, right? You have a freaking multi-million-dollar contract. You're probably in every single tabloid in the world. You're known. Kids are looking up to you. Why is it that mentally, right? It has to be some type of mental health defect, something going on that you need to
growing up too.
Yeah, you need to you. There's more value in showing the street cred than there is in the money that you're producing.
And getting out of it.
So
They're
I think
requesting you speak Spanish.
I think at the end of the day, you know, we'll go more into detail on that on another podcast because I do want to bring in a mental health expert to talk more into, you know, that mentality, that hood mentality, what creates that what makes these people do these kind of things. But I wanted to say I wanted to ask you guys whether or not you thought it had to do with that as well, like the concussion.
With Aaron Hernandez?
Yeah.
With Aaron
or
Hernandez?
or some of these players that do stupid shit like that. Like
I think I think it's 50-50. Like, there's some that, I think that the concussion stuff is messing with their psyche. But to Aaron Hernandez's case, I just think that he just can't get out of that hood mentality.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, you know, and hopefully, you know, if you're listening to this show and you're from the hood, don't get us wrong, you know, we all grew up in that same environment, but we're just saying,
We've known people.
Think smart, man. Like, you know, there's certain one little dumb shit that you do can ruin your whole.
He's out of it. He's making those millions that he was dreaming of. He's living in a really nice house, you know, out in Connecticut, which is not a cheap place to live. It's a very expensive place.
Yep.
But
so we only have a couple minutes left. We're not gonna jump into too much into this, but one of the main reasons I brought these two on the show was because we want to start talking about NFL predictions.
The loss of the Bears.
The horrible loss the Bears just had today. The whole season has been.
Well, when you put it into perspective, you're hoping that third pick that they'll have.
Yeah.
You're very
can
optimistic.
be,
Because,
a great
I don't
pick
think
for
like
them,
that.
So let's see.
It's a very optimistic approach because, you know, I tend to think a lot on the moment, you know. So in the moment, it's like, oh, shit, here they go again, and they're losing. And that drive of even watching any other game, kind of like, you sit there and it's like, oh, you know, like, my team's losing, you know? It's like, why
well,
do I
not for
wanna...
me, not because I gamble.
Well, you're doing
and
that.
I do
You're doing
fantasy
that.
football. I watch
Which makes you watch all the games.
Yeah.
Maybe I should get into that for next year because...
This year, I mean, you know, my main two sports are basketball and baseball. Then, you know, I up to 4 years ago, I was watching every single Bears game and play and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But
and then that's when they just
the last 4 years have been
shit.
They've gone to shit. So I'm like, whatever, you know. And then this year though, with the Cubs going all the way into
I'm still in that
November,
Cubs high.
It was like. You know, it was it was a good
Obviously,
6
right?
games already.
My
The Bears have
high
played,
ended
so-
11 years ago, 12 years ago.
I think at the end of the day, you know, I'm hoping something like you mentioned, the fact that they're probably getting the top 3 pick.
They're
draft.
projected to get the 3rd pick in the NFL draft.
Do you think a lot of the staff is gonna get the dreaded Black
Pink
Monday
slip
call
or the Black Monday? Yeah. No,
Is
I don't
that
think
NFL?
so.
Or is that
Black Monday
college
is the
ball?
NFL.
NFL, yeah.
I don't think so. I think because this is only John Fox's 2nd year, and then his team's second, his staff is 2nd year.
Yeah.
Usually, it takes about like 3 to 4 years before management gets sick of you. But
And it doesn't seem like he lost control of his players at all.
no,
Not like Trestman did.
because they actually, when Trestman was on the team, they lost all efforts and hope
Mr.
to
You
ever
could just
play
tell.
games.
You could
Mr.
just
I'm
tell.
going to talk to everyone
These guys
who
are-
comes back in the room.
These guys are actually fighting for
Yeah.
him every game.
Yeah.
The thing
They
is
just
they're
don't have
not
the talent.
talented enough.
Well, how many injuries? Don't they have about like
They
19?
had a list full of
19
injuries.
something like that.
Yeah.
IR.
So it just wasn't our season.
No. But those injuries allowed these rookies and these second year players to emerge.
Yeah.
You got Langford, who got injured in the beginning of the year, who took over his spot. Jordan Howard, who just broke the Bears'
Forte's.
record. It was Matt
Rookie
Forte's
record,
record,
right?
rookie record for the most rushing yards in a
Wow.
season. And on top of that, you got people like Cameron Meredith, who came out of nowhere when Alshon Jeffrey got hurt. And, Matt Barkley, a lot of people were going a little overboard saying that he should start for us next year. But at least we know we got some backup.
Yeah.
So
Commendable backup QB,
And then Floyd, Leonard Floyd, our most recent
Who at
first-round
first
pick
we
last
thought
year.
was like going to be a bust.
He has
but-
potential.
Yeah.
Then you have Eddie Goldman, you have Jonathan Bullard.
So
you
with
got
the
a lot of
roster
people.
that you saw this year and potentially being like a top 3 for the draft, where do you see the Bears going in
And
the
the
future?
salary cap that they'll have available too.
In the
Because
draft,
they'll get rid of
and
it,
they
yeah.
have a lot of money available. And then if they get rid of Cutler, that could free up some space.
So
depending
what's
on
your-
how they get rid of him
Where do you see the Bears at next season?
next season? So in the draft, one thing that
It's
they
too
got
early to say.
Yeah, it's too early.
it's way too early to say. But if they do this when the draft comes around and when the off season starts, they need to number one go after a playmaker. It doesn't matter if it's on the defensive side of the ball or the offensive side of the ball. If they go after on the defensive side of the ball, they need to go get someone that's a cornerback, somebody that is, because that is their main weakness that they've had this year. Their front seven, their linemen, and then their linebackers have been fantastic. That's probably the only positive on the defense.
Yeah.
But their secondary is horrendous.
The
And
takeaways.
then that's where they had like a decent amount of injuries from.
Yeah.
They also need to draft a quarterback. They need to stop drafting these retarded, ridiculous 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th rounders, and they need to do an early round pick. If it's not the first pick, the second pick,
Yeah.
because they need to find a franchise quarterback or someone else to take the reins other than Cutler.
Exactly.
Because I'm done defending
So-
the guy.
Yeah.
So-
that's it. I'm done with Cutler too.